considering distancing from animals is what they've recommended. Mostly, I think, because there was some evidence that the virus could be affecting a dog's test. So a dog had a positive test. The dog was healthy and fine, and there hasn't been any transmission of the virus, but from dogs to humans or dogs to other dogs that we know of. But what I think is important is also to remember this is a disease that came from wild type, possibly bats, through maybe another vector, through another animal. So knowing that it came from animals, we have to be cautious about it then and protect our animal brothers and sisters as well.
It's hard to tell between whether something is accurate information or scientifically based or reliable, really, or if it's, I think right now, more than ever, we're having this huge fake news era, kind of a mistrust in media, a mistrust in news.
What I hear your question is what is in our locus of control and how do we cope with that during a pandemic? There's also the question of, did we know this was going to happen? And from what I can see, and in my medical training, I graduated from medical school in 2005. And so in my training, we were taught this. We were taught that our Centers for Disease Control has a pandemic preparation plan, and also that with the potential different forms of flu or other viruses, right? So other forms of pathogens that we can expect that naturally they emerge into the environment, especially under the current pressures that we see with increasing numbers of folks interfacing with different environments across the world, because we were, as a population, putting more pressures on those environmental borders. So we're going more into the forest, we're going more into the salt brackish waters that may have these different pathogens perhaps we haven't been exposed to. And it's more complex than that also, of course, because, nature is a complex phenomenon and we're a part of that. And so it is natural for our bodies to recognize toxic invaders. And it is natural for us to have viruses and outbreaks. What is challenging is that this particular virus seems pretty slippery and smart. So not all viruses are this infectious. Not all viruses are this deadly either. And I don't mean to cause alarm. What I mean to say is the tests don't pick up everybody who has the virus. When we detect the test, people get sick who have it. And also, sometimes we don't have enough tests to know who has it, and the tests maybe aren't accurate anyways. So it's a real challenge for us to work together, get the information, cool the infection down so we can see who's going to get the illness and help them. Really, right now, what we just need to use is the best information source that we can. I found it helpful for me to read pretty much nonstop and listen to as many articles and podcasts as I've had time to for the last month, talking with other physicians. And so I'm trying to boil it down to helpful information, but it's really hard to boil down and extract the key nuggets of information that you need. It almost needs to be individualized, right? So that's what I struggle with, is trying to counsel everyone versus delivering the instructions to people one-on-one. So I guess what we need to know is, yes, this is serious. Yes, this is dangerous. There's no reason to be panicked. But we should be cautious and conscientious and also prepared. So our traditional stories, our traditional songs talk about always preparing. Our elders have told us, keep extra warm clothing, keep extra ways to mend your clothes. So those needles, the thread, keep those things. Be aware of having seeds that you can plant. and that hard times would come. So, what I'm saying is that there's an illness here now that has changed everyone's life, and some of us are making changes sooner. Some of us are sick. Some of us are needing more equipment to do their jobs, and this is absolutely real. So, I know that there are different angles used by the media, but I also know that there's a lot of mixed messaging that's been coming from our leadership. But the message from the Centers for Disease Control, World Health Organization, and Alaska Department of Social Services Epidemiology Center has all been consistent since January, saying prepare, asking for businesses to prepare, or perhaps periods of time when we wouldn't have access to goods and services, because if the pandemic did continue to spread, that we should just be prepared. So now we're learning what that means. And that's a lot to learn in a short amount of time when some people are feeling ill and many of us are wondering what exactly it means to be prepared. So identifying what you do during your daily life that you need to support yourself and your family. So everything from your clean water and food to knowing what's in your medicine cabinet, to being aware of what your resources are outside of your home, identifying resources for your family members or others in need. So we're really becoming a global community trying to help each other right now. I'm very reassured that we've changed the dialogue from just washing our hands and not touching our faces to starting to understand that the transmission in our communities requires more than that, and this isolation to protect the vulnerable, because we only have a limited amount of medical resources and we want those folks to be able to receive the care so that we don't have to ration the care like is being done in other parts of the world. There is no doubt in my mind from several resources that the reports from China and Italy and other countries are real. People and doctors are struggling to care for those in need. So it is of utmost importance that we take this very seriously. We don't need to panic. We just need to be smart and remember what our ancestors told us to prepare. So if we need to remind ourselves of what that means, reach out to those who know. So I'm happy to provide information as much as I can, but also I look out to my counsel, to my aunties, to my parents, to my sisters, to the people that I need to find out, how are you preparing? How are you thinking about this? And how are you doing? And what does this mean for you? How has it changed your life? Oh, I didn't think about that. I have been just leaving my laundry on the floor. I didn't wash it immediately. I'm not washing my my sheets daily. Oh, the Centers for Disease Control recommends this, right? So it actually is really helpful for me to a certain degree to run through those protocols of, if I'm sick, this is what I'm supposed to do. And it shouldn't cause too much stress to us. That information should be empowering, but it can be stressful because a change is stressful. And so now we have changes with our childcare, changes with our workplaces, changes with our travel. We could go on. There's so many changes that it is stressful. Remember, we all respond to stress differently. So some people respond by needing to be around other people. Some people respond by acting out in different ways, getting angry, getting overwhelmed. So I would just practice extra gentle kindness and loving with each other. And I would try also to be very mindful of the social distancing that's recommended. So if you're feeling ill, stay home and learn about what it means to be on home quarantine. And if you're not feeling ill, please be aware that you could be an asymptomatic carrier. It doesn't mean that you need to, be very, very concerned about yourself. Just gently monitor yourself, but also practice social distancing so you don't accidentally, inadvertently be spreading this thing. So folks be washing their hands and not touching their face as to not inadvertently spread the disease. That's the whole idea there.
It sounds like, accountability, holding yourself and others accountable for your actions. I certainly can use a little bit more accountability, holding myself accountable, holding my partner, Amos, accountable as well, because we have a 6-year-old, Amos's son, he's 6. And he spends a week with his mom and a week over here with us, and so I'm trying to think, what would be the best plan of action for that. And those are some things that we should really discuss with our family members and our loved ones. To have a plan pushes me to think about accountability in my own life.
What I think is challenging, in addition to what you've said, is that individualizing the protocols and what is appropriate. Right now, the information that we're getting says call your doctor and ask them. The trick is a lot of us don't have access to a primary care provider. So I'm trying really as best I can to individualize that care. And, there's 3 of us that work at my tiny clinic, myself and Stacy, my clinic manager, and Jonathan, who helps us. So with the 3 of us, we're doing the best that we can. And we're able to keep up with things right now. But I do think that it's hard for you maybe or others to get the information that you need about, okay, so now I'm sick. I don't know what I have. And I have a child who's going to be transported from point A to point B. Okay, so I think about the importance of disclosure and consent around, hey, I'm sick, I'm on quarantine, and now this child is in this house and now could be a vector, okay, could be transporting and transmitting this highly infectious thingy. Oh, it's complex. It requires knowledge about ethics and complex medical decision making. And this is part of the reason I think doctors are trying to step up and do our job as best we can. I would like for more guidance, honestly, from our local and public leadership to help give us more of these kinds of difficult dialogues so we can be making plans about this ahead of time. So even though my schedule is kind of slightly busy right now, I feel like talking about this is of utmost importance because I do feel like I have to help get the information out there because we don't have this real readily available dialogue about how to make those decisions, what to do. What they recommend now for homes where folks are on quarantine is that that person ideally is supposed to be in their own room, ideally with access to their own bathroom, so that we're keeping the majority, as much as possible, of those viral particles in that closed space, and then cleaning that space frequently, using your protocol, perhaps gloves, certainly good hand washing after that, and using our soap with water or also dilute bleach solutions, being careful not to mix chemicals together because that could cause other risks as well. So know what you're doing when you're using your cleaning solutions.
How would you suggest that we maintain social relationships, but also still adhering to social distancing?
So I think we have to look at our resources as individuals. So for me here in my home, that means I don't spend as much time with my bird or my tortoises or my bunny. But I do spend more time with folks who come and visit outside the window, or also with folks virtually. So I spend a lot of time checking in with folks in a loving and gracious way, or sometimes with a I'm feeling like I'm having a stressful moment, and I'd like to process some things that I just heard. And now I'm going to check back in with, my more centered self, but also being able to process those difficult things in community is very important. It's different to not have people physically in front of me. So I think it's important for us to recognize our resources. If you have a telephone, if you have those internet resources, if you have things like books, readings, recordings, movies, photographs, those wonderful things, remembering our dances and our songs. What do we do in the winter? We celebrate those wonderful opportunities for us to share our songs, our dances,